Hello, my name is Greg Wilson with the ZENworks Backline Support Team. Today, I'm going to be discussing how to use ZENworks to resolve a particular issue that was presented to me. There was a need for end users who are not local administrators to be able to use a web browser to go out to the internet and download certain files and install those files when those files need administrative rights, while at the same time making sure they don't or cannot just download and install anything they want that requires administrative rights. And so today, that's the problem we're going to be showing ZenWorks solve. So the so what I've done is I've created a bundle that actually will go through and pre-approve a set or a list of applications that end users can download and install. And so what we do is, one, we make sure that the file is signed, and we make sure that the signature is valid, and then we pull details from that file to help confirm it's among the list of items we can install. So the bundle, this actually has defined 4 items that can be installed: Rufus, Firefox, WebEx, and Postman. Uh, I don't have Postman on this device, so I won't be demonstrating it. Um, but and the one item I have downloaded, AnyDesk, is not on the list. And so let me go through and show you a few things about the details we can pull. So when looking at an executable, there's along with the certificate, we can pull things such as file description, product name, original file name. So along with validating that this is a valid certificate and this is the expected certificate, we can then compare it for items here just to make sure it is what we think it is. And a note about original file name. This has nothing to do with the NTFS or file system name. This has everything, this is just built into the executable. Any attempts to alter original file name, file description, or product name will break the validity of the signing. So the signing will no longer be valid. So we know we can trust these. And then when we go into digital signature, we can pull up details and we can see stuff like who it was issued to, who was issued by. We can pull up things such as the thumbprint, and the thumbprint is actually the entire chain, sort of in details. So if anything changed, this is a very good simple thing to check. So if anything dies or changes, it would become invalid. And when we look at this signing cert, we can see that it's valid for about 3 years. So most likely, if we're to like use the thumbprint and stuff as part of the cert check, it will probably stay good for 3 years, because if Rufus comes out with a new Rufus for 13, for 14, the certs will remain the same, and all the signatures and thumbprints still remain the same until they replace the cert, and they don't have a need to do that for a year and a half or so. So, and then if we go to Firefox, we'll notice this is an MSI. And if we go here and look at details, some of the options are a little different. We don't have original file name, and some of those other file descriptions aren't there. But we actually have some MSI details, such as subject, and even the comments. And so when analyzing the file, we can go, okay, I know this file is from Mozilla, and the certificate's valid. So I read the cert, I know that. But Mozilla has a large number of products. So I need to check more than just if the cert is valid. So I can go in here and I can look at the subject and go, okay, the subject has Mozilla, has Firefox, the comments have Firefox, This is Firefox. So, I will go down here. But also something to note when looking at the digital signatures. You won't see that here. But if you go to Rufus, go to here, more options, properties, digital signature, the details. You can see so we can see this certificate was issued to Mozilla, but it was issued by this particular DigiCert CA. And this is a very common CA, so you need to make sure never to trust just issued by. If you're not going to use a thumbprint, which is the full chain, make sure to use issued to along with issued by, because that combination will kind of give you an idea that they're all valid. Issued to is probably okay, but issued by, make sure it's not issued by someone else who's using a similar issue to. It shouldn't happen. So, but to help avoid that, also include the issued by. Never use just issued by, because that could be to lots of people. And even in my random sampling, I have multiple people using the same certificate. The WebEx one is an interesting one to look at. So we go to details. I can see the original file name is webex.exe, which doesn't align with the totally random name of the downloaded file. The other thing to note when we look at the digital signatures, we can see that it has expired. It was good for a little over 3 years, but it expired a week ago. Now, anything that doesn't mean that things signed by this certificate are invalid. It just means that it can no longer be used to sign new items. There is something called a countersignature. And what the countersignature does, it helps confirm that a file was signed within the validity period. But also because the signing cert has expired, what this means is the next time WebEx issues an updated or a new version of this file, it is going to have a new thumbprint. It's going to have a new certificate. So most of those details, a lot of those details will change. Most likely, the issue to and issue by won't change. So if you could use them for testing instead of using the thumbprint, because the thumbprint will change because the underlying cert has changed. So, and that's what I did in this example for 3 of the 4 items that I'm testing. I'm using thumbprint because that is highly authoritative, it's very good. And that's a perfect match. Now using issue to and issue by is very strong, but not quite as strong. And I'm not going to use it for WebEx because as soon as they release a new file, the thumbprint's going to change. The thumbprint hasn't changed on any versions of the downloadable WebEx in about 2 years, because I have a long history, and the thumbprint is the same because they're reusing the same certificate. But it will change the next time that they issue a new WebEx. And this is also an example of how a lot of the time-limited downloads work. When you have a product that uses a time-limited download, generally you are not getting different executables. So every person who has their custom download file is not getting a different exe with different contents, with different signatures. What they do is they actually have one file they give to everyone, but they rename it. And then the Windows file name, the file system name, actually has embedded in it all the details that are needed for it to use. So this long WebEx name will have, that name indicates, oh, this is this session, this is where you need to connect, and every custom detail about that WebEx session that it needs to join is in that file name string. So so this file doesn't change every time a different person has a WebEx session. So you have 1,000 people starting 1,000 WebEx sessions. They don't all get 1,000 different executables. They're presented with a different link that causes it to download as a unique file name that contains all the needed details. So, okay, so now we're going to go ahead, and then you can see here that I am logged on as end user. End user is a user. He's not an administrator or even a power user. So we're going to go ahead and try to install Rufus, which I've downloaded. It's blocked. I'm going to try Firefox. Let's go through. I'm blocked. So now I'm going to pull up my app installer, and I'm going to select AnyDesk. And as a reminder, AnyDesk is not one of the permitted applications. That will be Rufus, Firefox, WebEx, and Postman. Boom, so it comes back and it says only Firefox, Rufus, and WebEx can run. I don't mention Postman just because it's just in there for testing purposes. So now, in the ctemp directory, there is a file called out.txt where I log everything. Temp pem is used as a working directory. So what happens when I launch the application and the user gets presented with a list of files to download from their own downloads directory, it copies and puts it in the temp pem directory as a working directory, because the dynamic administrator is not going to have rights, even as an administrator by default, to the user's personal profile directory. So we can see here that the file name is anydesk.exe, again copied from the downloads directory. There is no original file name, so we couldn't. However, it does have a file description. It has a product name. The certificate's valid. This is the certificate serial number. There's its thumbprint, the subject, and who it was issued by. There are no MSI file details because it's not an MSI. And so we go through here and we can see it doing different checks and checks that fail. So it goes in and it checks the original file name fails, because in my set of tests I'm looking for something called webex.exe. And also the subject of the cert failed because it was issued to AnyDesk and not to WebEx. There's actually another check for the issuer. That's not logged here because that actually passes. I don't bother logging things that pass just to keep the details minimized. And then again, it does a check. Since no match was found for WebEx, it goes to Rufus. And again, there's a check for original file name. It does not pass. There's a search subject. Again, it does not pass. And for thumbprint, again, it does not pass. And then for Postman, it fails all the checks there. And for Firefox, again, it fails all those. Now, what you can do is, let's say you wanted to add AnyDesk as an item in the permitted list. Just do as I did here. Run the app installer and select Postman, and then just collect these details, or just log this out. And when you go into the bundle and you go to the section that you want to update, here's all the details of items you can use to allow AnyDesk to pass. And so now what we're going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and close this window. And then now I'm going to go back to Firefox, which previously failed. And bingo, and we can now see Firefox installing. And I go back here to the logs, and boom, so I can see here's the Firefox MSI. There is no original name, file description, or product name, mostly because it's an MSI, but the certificate's valid, and but there's the serial number, thumbprint, the search subject issuer, and then also the MSI subject and description. For this, I actually make use of those to make sure that it's actually referencing Mozilla Firefox. And then it just goes through for some other things that passed. And down at the end, it says Firefox passed, while all the others failed. And now here's Firefox, so it's now valid. And I believe I've covered the basic things. Well, here, so let me pull up. And so basically, what I have here is just this first script. It does nothing really. It just launches cmd.exe as a dynamic administrator. But what that does do is that makes sure that there is a DAU user that's been created and sort of cached. And so later, the next time I run a DAU action, it will launch very quickly. So it kicks that off, and then while that's running, everything else continues. And then it just clears the PEM directory. It creates it in case it's not there. And then a PowerShell script runs as logged on user, where the user can browse and select what they want. And then after they select something, it gets dumped over to the temp PEM directory, as well as a little runme.txt, which details what was selected. And then this here is the one that does all the work, and this runs as dynamic administrator. And so it basically goes in here, it reads the runme.txt to find the path to the file to launch, and then it reads that file and gets all the details about the file. Its original name, description, everything you see here. And then if it's an MSI file, it goes and grabs the MSI file details, and then it goes and logs everything it found to the temp PEM directory. And then what I do is for every item I want to permit is I create a special section, and I make a unique section for each one. And I do this because the rules I use for every executable or installer may be a little different depending on, hey, is it an MSI, is it an exe, what details are available, that kind of stuff. So basically the first thing I do, I check to see if the signature is valid. If it's not, I move on. And I'm never going to pass anything that doesn't have a valid signature. So then in this case, I'm looking for original file name to equal exactly WebEx. I'm looking for a search subject that is exactly this here. And then I'm actually looking for an issuer that has this substring match. I did sort of a substring just in case the issuer came from a slightly different cert from DigiCert. But you could either do a full string match or even a less, a smaller substring. And then so at any time, if any of these fail, we log the failure to pem.out. And we also set it pass to false. So in each substring, I start by making pass true and then do a series of checks. If any check fails, it goes back to failed or false. And then for each one, I enter in so long as I haven't found a match yet. So, and again, so for here, and so what I would do if I wanted to say to add any desk in here, I would just highlight an area, copy it, paste it in, and then just change the various details such as what I was looking for. Instead of looking for, I would change the cert subject, the cert issuer, maybe instead of original file name, I might use something else. Like if I go down here, if you'll notice Firefox, I'm actually checking for MSI subject, looking for the word Firefox. I could even expand it out to be more robust if I want to be even tighter on checking that. And then basically, if it gets through and it's actually flagged something has passed after getting through all the checks, it'll come down here and say, oh, okay, something passed that was true, and go ahead and launch that file. If nothing passes, it comes up and says, hey, this is all that's allowed to be installed. And that's really all there is to it. I'm going to be writing an article that will help expand upon this. And it'll have a copy of the bundle that you can work with. And hopefully you might find this useful or find use cases for it. I thought it was actually kind of exciting to allow end users the ability to download and install specific and only specific applications. So yeah, I'm always finding new things ZENworks can do. It's such a great product, so wide open. It's really just limited by your mind. And thanks again, and I will talk to you later. Bye.